Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. And let me say Hotep Abaragani. Hello, hi, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because that's personal trauma for me. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're located at 8916 South Main, and we're being hosted by our host church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, and we welcome you to any and all of our services. It's 2 congregations in the 1 location, and yes, we have the 1 service. Yes, it is a high service, because when the Baptists and the Methodists get together, when the Charismatics and the Baptists get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. Thank God we got that right. All right, and this offering that you are viewing or looking at or listening to is entitled It's Time. And I want to say hello to my Facebook compadres and friends and my YouTube allies, and please hit the thumbs up button, all of you, and subscribe, and we will be off and rolling. A lot of times I forget to mention that, but we thank God for this venue and for this outlet that He has provided for us through this great station, KTYM, now owned by my friend, Dr. Blackwell, and we're looking forward to great things in the near future. Well, my friends, what is our purpose? Our purpose is social justice, social activism. Those of you that are young enough and still have the fire in the belly should certainly be active right now because of the way that our country is being overrun by these gun manufacturers and these people that buy these guns for no other purpose than to go kill another human being. I think last week we were mourning the loss of the 10 black people who had been killed by a white racist in Buffalo, New York, and yet this week we are mourning the loss of those 19 kids and those 2 adult teachers there in Uvalde, Texas. Looks like we can't get away from it. Every time you turn around, there is another massacre with the principal weapon being a gun. And this is a good time to look at the Second Amendment and how it constrains and restrains any meaningful changes in who can have these deadly weapons. I'm of the mind that you don't need no AR-15 to protect your house, and because a AR-15 is nothing short of a military weapon, and I carried the M16 in Vietnam, and I wasn't up to no good. And why would you need an AR-15 in your house? You cannot justify that, because if you use it, the bullet's going to go through the person and through the walls and through your neighbor's house. It's just not that type of a weapon. It's not a domestic dispute weapon. It's a lethal weapon. The shot is designed and manufactured to do great harm. If it don't kill you, look at the harm that it's going to do. You're never going to be the same. And if it's a hollow point bullet, as they almost demand that you buy when you go to the gun shop, then the person's insides are going to be destroyed. You don't know if you hit them here or you hit them here. Lord have mercy. So no, those type of weapons don't need to be sold in the United States of America. Why? Why do you need an AR-15 weapon to protect your house? No, that's not for protection. That's for attack. That's an assault weapon. And this young man, we won't call his name because we don't want to call the other man's name. The police finally killed him. That was after he had spent over an hour in this school, Robb Elementary School, and they started the funerals yesterday, and they're going to be funerals tomorrow and funerals in the coming weeks. And our hearts are just, your heart is just ripped out when you look at those little children. It was bad enough that the elderly black people were killed in Buffalo. I think the youngest there was 32, and the oldest was 86. I can look at my notes from last week. Yeah, the youngest was 32, and the oldest was 86. My Lord. But these were all, the youngest was 8 years of age, and then of course the adult, their teachers, they don't give their ages, but look at the carnage that we are living through. Look at the demonic forces that have been unleashed. And I say demonic forces advisedly because the Second Amendment is a demonic force. Remember that it was crafted during slavery, and its purpose is stated right there in the opening words of the argument. I brought my copy of the Second Amendment by Dr. Carol Anderson, Race, Guns in a Fatally Unequal America, but the title is the second. That's what it means, the Second Amendment. Remember the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law touching the establishment of a religion or the freedom of speech. But then the Second Amendment, well-regulated militia being necessary to a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And that word infringed, that means that the law cannot be altered, changed, the terms of the agreement or the law. It is what it is. And as I said, it was conceived during slavery, and its purpose was that the landed people who were white, and and they were hiring the formerly indentured, who were also white, because white had by that time had taken on a political value, that if you were white, then you would not be a slave, but if you were black, then slavery was your, as Alexander Stephens said in the Civil War in his address, that slavery was your normal, natural subordination to the dominant power was your normal condition of the African. So the African was he didn't use the word doomed, but he may as well have used it was naturally inferior to the politically constituted white man. At that time, it was European. And so that was the conception of the Second Amendment. It was brought about to deputize every able-bodied white person to get a gun or get a weapon and go chase the runaway slaves. Or if the slaves had started an insurrection or a rebellion in the plantation, that they would go down there and put that rebellion out. And that's why the police to this day, to this hour, are so violent against the black bodies of our people, because that's the way they responded all through the slave period. And the Second Amendment was written for black people, but not in the way that you think, positive. No, it was written for the negative, and that, in other words, you would be the one that the Second Amendment would be applied upon, meaning that you would be the one that the person with the gun would be looking for and hunting. And that's why when you read police reports, they always say, well, he got a gun, because you ain't got no business with no gun in this settler society. All right, let me also say, as I hurry on, because I don't have many minutes, that I believe in reparation. I believe in to have social justice, we're going to have environmental justice, and that we must also have economic justice. And that economic justice means a reckoning with the unpaid ledger, the account from slavery, or including slavery. Indeed, the California Committee on Reparations has concluded that only those who can trace their lineage to the enslaved will be justified in receiving reparations. And the problem with that is, of course, naturally, every white person can trace their lineage to some slaves in their family, because they were the progenitors, they were the beneficiaries, and our women were raped. They wasn't given no consent to bear children to their white slave masters. No, they were literally raped. They had no say in the matter, and they were raped as young as 12 or beginning at 13. And so we're going to have a big problem if we think that only black people are going to be able to trace their lineage, because every white person is going to trace their family lineage, because they had slaves in the family. Yes, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all of them, going back to Cotton Mather, John Adams was not a slave, but so many of the early founding fathers were slaveholders. You must remember, the majority of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence had slaves and were slaveholders. And they believed in slavery. They believed in freedom for themselves, but they believed in bondage for the black bodies, the African people who they had kidnapped, who were formerly free in their own country, mind you, on their own continent of Ghana and Guinea-Bissau and all of those countries. And remember that continent of Africa has suffered a great unjustified invasion by the continent of Europe. And the European still holds most of the deeds to the gold or all of the valuable resources that are so plentiful on the continent of Africa. But now, before I get to the conclusion, I want to state that a black man with a gun is viewed with horror but a white man with a gun can massacre because he's a white man. And I better read my scripture before I get myself in too deep, because the time will be up on me. In the book of Deuteronomy, we're talking about Revelations, the 15th chapter, picking up the reading at the 12th verse. It says, "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go out free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty, but thou shalt liberally furnish them out of thy flock and out of thy floor and out of thy winepress. Of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them." And the purpose of that was, of course, that if a person has labored for you and you have benefited and increased, then you don't just send them away out the gate with the shirt clothes on their back. No, you at that time it was not so much money in your pocket, although that too was a medium of exchange, but you made sure that they had supplies, and so that they would not go hungry as they went on their way. And you could not keep them past 7 years, because they were God's children. They were made in God's image, and most of the time it was your kinsman, and so you were to be respectful and treat them with dignity and the like, and that's the way that was. And so God looked out for the poor, in other words, in that agrarian culture. And we don't look out for the poor now, because we are in a capitalistic culture. We don't care if you live or die. Which brings us to the second scripture, which is Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 and 12, which I'm sure we all know, because we've all repeated it or recited those two verses. Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus. That's the same Ephesus that is in the book of Revelation. And in the 6th chapter of Ephesians, let me go to that so I won't misquote it. This is what it says. Verse 11. "Put on, therefore, the whole armor of God." Right. Let me remember. "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And that is our justification for how we talk about the system. It is the system. During the years of the Black Panthers, they said that the system was against us, and the system is still against us. When they tell you, if you're a veteran, they say, "Oh, we thank you for your service." Well, that is a white-facing, Eurocentric, systemic cliche, generalization. The other man doesn't mean that he actually honors you, because they don't honor veterans in this country. The veterans that came back from World War II, our black people, had a hell of a time getting access to the GI Bill, because it was white only, because the country was a white only country. When the administration began to open up housing and give out VA loans, it wasn't until 1968 and after that black people could get access to those VA loans, because redlining situation, which prevailed in most of the financial structure, which is what the 6th chapter of Ephesians is talking about. You wrestle not against flesh and blood. You're not wrestling against that man or that woman, that real estate agent or broker. No, you're wrestling against a machine. Principalities, powers, the finance company, that's power. The principality, that's the a real estate agent or the real estate people in all of their manifestations. They report to the power, the people who have the money. And the people who have the money are the people who control this country. And all 50 states, it don't matter. And that poison has been spread all over the world. But I don't want to dwell on that because I wanted to sympathize and empathize as I might with the loss of life down there in Uvalde, Texas. But I wanted you to realize that the Second Amendment issue is one that we are going to have to move our congressional elected officials off of the dime, because Mitch McConnell and the 50 senators that he controls, including Joe Manchin, yes, and Miss Sinema, who claim to be Democrats, we are going to have to inveigh against them, vote them out of office, and get some people in there who will at least have enough sense to know that we can't keep going this way with these guns in the hands of teenagers. An 18-year-old today ain't got no business with no assault weapon in his house that he owns. No. What are they going to do with it, as I have said previously? And you don't buy a gun. Why spend $2,000 for a gun that you're going to just put on the wall or shove in the corner? No, you buy a gun like that, you're going to use that gun. As, what was her name that she just died recently? Why have such a military and don't put it to use? Madeleine Albright. And said she was ready to sacrifice the children of the world for American hegemony and the American way of life, as she defined it. And remember, American interests are not Black American interests, because we are never invited to the party or to partake of the spoils. We are the spoil. We are the ones that are spoiled. We are the ones, and what I mean by spoiled, taken advantage of, exploited, and misused. That's our position, even now. And so the Second Amendment is going to be front and center for the rest of my life and your life too, because we're going to have to make the gun dealers, the gun sellers, the gun stores stop selling those lethal weapons. And they're not going to want to obey, because, like I said, I think it costs about $2,000 for one of those weapons. And then you got to buy bullets. This boy down there in Uvalde, Texas, he had over 700 bullets of ammunition. He fired a bunch of bullets in that school. And the people are waking up to the realization that the law enforcement let the white folks down just like it let the black folks down. They didn't go in there and confront that man. Now in 2018, down there in Birmingham, well, no, it was in Hoover, Alabama. Alabama is an open carry state. Anybody in Alabama can own and carry, have your weapon with you, because that's the way it is. So a black man, his name was 18-year-old. No, he was 21 years old. His last name was Bradford. His first name was Emantic. No. Emantic Bradford Fitzgerald, I believe. Anyway, to my story, he was with his friends in the mall on Thanksgiving Day in 2018. 5 minutes, all right. And there was a gunfight in there. He wasn't involved in the gunfight, but he first ran away from the thing, and then he went back towards the commotion. And he was killed by the responding police officers, plainclothes officers, who mistook him for the shooter. And because he had a gun and had the gun out, and he was black, naturally, if you're not in Alabama, you are black and you got a gun, and the white police officer come up behind you, you dead. So the officer fired 3 shots, and all 3 shots hit Mr. Bradford in the back of the head. I think only one hit him in his hip. Both of them were, all 3 shots, in other words, were lethal. And the one that killed him was the one that hit him right here. So naturally, the police are high-fiving themselves because they didn't stop a perp. Come to find out, this man was not the perp. Perp was another black fella who got out of and they didn't arrest him till a week later down in the state of Georgia. Point is, a black man with a gun is open season as far as the police or the law enforcement officials are concerned. Down there in Uvalde, Texas, as we said, the police authorities let the people down because after the Columbine shooting, the police, whatever responding officer is supposed to go in that building and try to neutralize the threat. That's the law. They didn't do that. They didn't do that, and so as a result, not only were the 8 or 9 children immediately killed, but then there were 8 or 9 more that were killed while the police was in the lobby of the hallways, but would not go into the room where the slaughter was taking place, where the people were being killed for at least an hour. And so now today they got egg on their face because it's coming out how cowardly they were. It's really cowardly. They wanted to go home at 5 o'clock. That's a policeman's mantra. Try to make it back home. So they wasn't going to go in there. They called another operation, another agency, and come to find out it was the Border Patrol that finally went in and neutralized the threat. In other words, they went in there and killed a man. And they didn't waste time. They killed him. And that's the way they handled that. But the police could have made an entry much earlier. That's the point. But they wouldn't. And that's because, for whatever reason, and I know the reason, they didn't want to get shot. They did not want to jeopardize their pension or their lives. And so whatever story they tell, they just lie, they just cover up, CYA, and that's all that is. Second Amendment, we got to fight. We got to keep on fighting, all right? To all of our brothers and sisters that are still laboring in the job market, God bless you and may God prosper you. And remember, get as much as you can for your labor, because once you get your labor out there, you cannot get it back. And if you're working for anybody that they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Out of here, Doc. Thank you very much.
I just say thank you, Lord.